Alright, people, we know the situation with the WBO. Fabio Wardley defeated Joseph Parker a couple of weeks ago, which therefore made him mandatory for Oleksandr Usyk. And we have heard talks that the negotiations are underway, which is good. We want to... Look, I believe Oleksandr Usyk, a mandatory is due, irrespective of the person. If a mandatory is due, and it's long overdue at this stage, it needs to be fulfilled. You know, it's one thing to have all the belts, but, you know, that comes with responsibility. It comes with mandatories, you know, and if you've earned the right and you're next in line, you know, you should get your shot. So Fabio Wardley defeated Joseph Parker, who was next in line. He then inherits it. So you would imagine that he's going to be next in line to face Usyk. You would think. Well, Moses Itauma and Fabio Wardley may be ordered to fight each other under one condition. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is according to TalkSport. It says the following. Fabio Wardley may be forced to overcome Moses Itauma before he can duke it out with Oleksandr Usyk for all the marbles. The Ipswich puncher stunned the boxing world with a come-from-behind stoppage win over Joseph Parker on October the 25th in London's O2 Arena. In victory, Wardley became the WBO interim champion and punched his ticket for a fight with Oleksandr Usyk. The WBO had initially ordered Usyk to defend his titles against Park, but the Ukrainian was granted a medical exemption due to a lingering back injury, resulting in Wardley receiving the call to face the Kiwi. Wardley's promoter, Frank Warren, recently revealed that talks have commenced with Team Usyk following his client's heroics last month. However, WBO President Gustavo Olivier, I believe that's how you say that name, insists that the Brit could be ordered to defend his interim title against Itauma if Usyk has justifiable reason to delay his mandatory again. I don't like hearing that. I really don't. You know, a lot of people were saying that, you know, Oleksandr Usyk deserves to be able to pick who he wants to fight next and this, that and the other. And listen, I have the utmost respect for Oleksandr Usyk. I think he's been a fantastic champion. He's been a fantastic ambassador for the sport of boxing. I think that as a person, he is someone that you could honestly look up to as a role model, certainly for young people coming through, because he's really is a man of his people. He's a devout father, devout husband, devout Christian. There's a lot to like about Oleksandr Usyk. There's not a lot to criticize. But at the end of the day, if you have titles and you've got contenders waiting in the wings, they deserve their shot at the end of the day. Because people say, oh, well, he can pick who he wants. Well, at the end of the day, right, you can argue that, yeah, he can pick who he wants, but do you really want to see him fight Tyson Fury again? So, like, if Oleksandr Usyk says, right, I want to fight Tyson Fury next, and you're saying, oh, well, he can pick who he wants. It's like, so does that mean that Tyson Fury can then circumvent everybody? He can go and circumvent the WBC mandatory, the WBO mandatory, the WBA, etc., to just jump ahead of the queue? I don't think that's right. And I don't think that that's right for Usyk to want to do that. And again, look, he says he has a lingering back injury. Okay, fair enough. You know, even a lingering back injury, they've granted you an exemption. But surely that should be it then, should it not? If another injury pops up, and look, they can happen, but at the end of the day, we've seen the IBF over, you know, things where, like, I'll give you an example. When Joe Cordina won his IBF title, and I forget who it was against, I forget the guy's name, but it was a big knockout win. He was stripped almost instantly because he had a mandatory, but he had an injury, and I think he was able to prove that he was injured, and straight away they stripped him. It's like, that's the whole purpose of interim titles, and that's against someone who literally, he'd only won the belt when it was like, right, look, I've got an injury, not tough, you know what, there you go. And in some aspects you could say that's harsh, but in another aspect you could say, well, that's actually fair, because, you know, you're injured, we have no problem, you know, making you champion in recess, which they have done for people. So if Oleksandr Usyk really is injured, and I'm not doubting that he is, certainly not, but isn't that why we have champions in recess? So if Oleksandr Usyk, something does happen and he has to delay it again, should Fabio Wardley not be elevated to full champion? Would Oleksandr Usyk then, when he's ready to come back, be given first crack? Is that not what it's for? You know, is that the whole purpose of it? Again, that's just me thinking outside the box. I'll carry on. The committee reserves the right, to enforce the mandatory on the interim champion, Olivier told The Ring magazine. If Usyk is not available for any justified reason, we would enforce a mandatory. Moses Itauma struggles with pinning down his opponent. Itauma is currently ranked by the WBO in boxing's Glamour division and is on the lookout for a next opponent after a series of setbacks. The Chatham Southpaw was due to headline Queensberry's December the 13th show in Manchester, yet his return to the ring has since been delayed after multiple boxers priced himself out of the negotiations or flat out rejected the matchup. It seems though Itauma has finally secured his next dance partner when the WBA ordered Kubrat Pulev to defend the lesser regular belt. Oh, and it is lesser. Believe you me, that belt is, yeah, that's really what it is. It is a lesser belt if ever I've seen it. However, the WBA have now granted Pulev a voluntary defence against Kasiev after it was revealed the pair had agreed terms before the mandatory was made. Moses and Itauma. Actually, that's a good point. I forgot to mention that, actually. If Wardley and Itauma were forced to face each other, it would leave their joint trainer, Ben Davison, in an awkward position. Davison previously stated that he would be adamantly against matching his two clients against each other, while Wardley suggested that he would be willing to fight his training partner if they were both world champions. Who knows how the future's going to go? Right now, me and Moses, we're both on our own courses, Wardley told Sky Sports News. We both need to grab our world titles first before we're able to have some conversations, maybe about crossing swords ourselves. But there's enough out there right now for the pair of us to have a go and just occupy ourselves with before we start having serious talks about maybe getting in the ring at the same time. I think that's the end of the quote, or that's the end of the article. Yes, it is. Yeah, that would be interesting. How would that go if they're both in Team Davison? One of them would have to step aside. It's not like Ben Davison could train the both. And the problem is, right, if, let's hypothetically say Ben Davison decides to side with Moses Itauma, hypothetically, right, and then they do end up fighting one another, they are ordered. Does that then not mean like that Wardley's at a distinct disadvantage because Ben Davison will know his weaknesses? He's training the guy. Oh yeah, and then how would the camp go? All these things need to be factored in. Personally, for me, right, I would hope that Oleksandr Usyk fulfills the mandatory next. I think knowing Usyk and knowing the character he is, that he would fulfill it. I've no reason to doubt that he wouldn't. But knowing that you've basically got a justifiable reason with the president of your organization, the WBO, saying, yeah, for any reason we need to push it back, we will. That's kind of given Oleksandr Usyk carte blanche to say, right, what do I fancy next? Do I fancy a Fury trilogy? I certainly don't. Do I fancy, taking on a Moses Itauma, which I don't think that fight will happen. I don't think Itauma, if I was advising Itauma, I'd be advising him against that fight. I wouldn't be picking him against Usyk next, no way. So it's an interesting dilemma. It certainly is. Again, this is just me from the outside looking in. That WBO interim title, the mandatory status, which is essentially what it is, it's been lying dormant for a while now. Parker was next in line. Then it was now it's Fabio Wardley, obviously, and you're just kind of like, come on, we really need to get this ordered. Having said that, Parker was willing to forego that mandatory with the WBO to fight Daniel Dubois in February, but obviously that fight didn't happen. He wasn't obliged to fight. Like, again, you talk about ordering fights. They didn't order him to face Fabio Wardley. He chose to do that. And I personally think for Joseph Parker, it's very commendable to do that. It's very commendable to do it. Really is. But look at someone like Ajay Kabayel. He's having a fairly easy fight. Let's be real, he's having a fairly easy fight next time. And he's not obliged to fight any big names. He's not obliged to fight, the next best available. He's interim champion. He can sit on that if he wants. If the WBO or WBC are not forcing him to fight anybody, he doesn't have to. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Until next time, people, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, smash the like button. And thank you for the feedback on the previous video. I really don't know what happened on Sunday's video. It sounded perfect when I was listening to it before I uploaded it, and everything just seemed to go to you know what. But I've made triple sure that this mic sounds good. I probably will change up the location of where we're filming this. I'll probably move into a different room because I've got more space. So I'll probably do that on the weekend. So just for now, it's going to be here because it's just going to be awkward. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Until next time, people. Peace.